Right now, as you're listening to this, there's a frequency playing behind my voice that your conscious mind can't detect, but your deeper self recognizes instantly. Because if these words are reaching you, if something inside you feels like it already knows what's coming next, it's not an accident. It's confirmation. For most people, the signs are subtle, synchronicities, strange dreams, moments where the world feels slightly unreal. But for others, the shift is immediate. You wake up one day and reality feels thinner, like you're seeing through something instead of simply looking at it. And the reason is simple. Once your consciousness crosses a certain threshold, you can't go back. You start noticing patterns in conversations, in symbols, in the way certain people react to your presence. You start feeling energies instead of just observing behaviors. You recognize deception instantly, and you sense truth before it's spoken. That's not intuition. It's memory. Something inside you is waking up, something ancient, something that has been waiting for the exact moment when you were finally strong enough to handle the truth of what you really are. Most people will never reach this point in their entire lifetime. But if you're hearing this right now, it's because your soul chose to align itself with a higher state of awareness. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. And once that happens, everything you thought was coincidence becomes communication. Everything you thought was imagination becomes remembrance. And everything you thought was external becomes internal. As far back as the ancient world, initiates spoke about a moment when a human being begins to dissolve the illusion of separation. The Egyptians called it the opening of the doors of heaven. The mystery schools described it as the soul remembering its origin. But for most of history, this knowledge was hidden, encrypted in symbols, passed only to those who had proven they could handle it without losing themselves. They knew that awakening wasn't a poetic metaphor. It was a measurable expansion of consciousness. And the ones who experienced it were often misunderstood, exiled, or labeled dangerous because they stopped believing the narratives that held the world together. The same signs you're experiencing now, heightened perception, sudden detachment from old identities, an overwhelming sense that something is off with the world, were recorded centuries ago. Texts carved into temple walls described initiates who began perceiving layers of reality invisible to ordinary people. They spoke of a veil between worlds thinning, of individuals who could sense beings and energies outside the physical spectrum. Back then, only the highest initiates were allowed to advance to that stage because it meant you could no longer be controlled through fear, belief systems, or authority structures. If you awakened too early or without guidance, the shift could destabilize you. So knowledge was restricted, not to suppress humanity but to protect those who weren't ready. Today, that veil is thinning for everyone, not just trained initiates. Energies that once required decades of disciplined preparation are now accessible to those who have simply reached the right point in their soul cycle. The reason you're awakening now is because the same forces, the same patterns, the same cosmic timings that guided the ancient mystery schools are reactivating. What was once rare is now accelerating. And you're part of that acceleration. You've probably felt it growing stronger over the years, the sense that you're not operating on the same frequency as the people around you. Conversations that once felt normal now feel shallow. Environments that used to feel comfortable now feel heavy or artificial. That's because awakening doesn't happen in a single moment. It happens in waves. The first wave is discomfort, an internal friction that tells you the world you're participating in doesn't match the world your soul remembers. The second wave is recognition, patterns aligning, symbols appearing in your daily life, synchronicities clustering so tightly that probability collapses. The third wave is activation, your inner senses waking up like dormant organs coming back online. You notice energies in rooms. You sense people's intentions before they speak. You understand situations without needing information. And none of this is new. These are abilities you had before incarnation. But entering the physical world forces the soul to compress its awareness. Awakening is simply the reversal of that compression. Think about it. Your mind isn't expanding. It's returning. Your intuition isn't improving. It's reconnecting. Your vision isn't changing. It's clearing. Thoth described awakening as the remembering of remembrance, a loop in which consciousness realizes it had never forgotten anything, It had only fallen asleep inside a dense reality system. When you feel that inner pull toward truth, that deep resonance in your chest when you hear something that feels ancient, that's the moment the soul pushes memory through the human mind. That's why awakening feels like déjà vu rather than discovery. You're not learning, you're recalling. The reason it intensifies now is because your energetic field is outgrowing the limitations of your old identity. The version of you that was shaped by family, society, and survival no longer fits your expanded state. That's why relationships shift, why you lose interest in certain conversations, why noise feels louder and silence feels sacred. Your system is recalibrating to a higher bandwidth of consciousness. And as that bandwidth expands, so does your perception of reality. You begin noticing that some people drain your energy while others amplify it. You feel guided to certain places at certain times. You become aware of repeating numbers, patterns, symbols that follow you as if reality itself is communicating in a coded language. This isn't imagination. This is communication between your higher consciousness and your physical vessel. The more you align with it, the more synchronized your life becomes. You might also notice that you're becoming less reactive. Situations that used to trigger you now feel distant, like watching someone else's story. That's because awakening dissolves emotional programs. It removes outdated scripts. You stop engaging with lower frequency behaviors not because you're above them, but because they no longer vibrate at your level. You don't wake up one day and suddenly become enlightened. You rise in increments, each realization raising your frequency until your external world must reorganize itself around the new internal state. This is why awakening feels both liberating and destabilizing. You're stepping out of the old matrix of perception and into your original state of awareness. And once that shift stabilizes, there is no going back. By the time you reach this stage, the signs are undeniable. You feel the distance between who you once were and who you're becoming. You see through intentions instantly. You notice when someone is lying, pretending, projecting, avoiding. Your soul no longer tolerates environments that suffocate your frequency. You start craving truth, clarity, simplicity, authenticity. Not because you're becoming rigid, but because your internal compass is aligning with your original blueprint. Awakening isn't a trend. It isn't aesthetics. It's the moment your soul calls back its power from every lie you were ever told about who you are. And if you're still listening right now, it means you heard the call. You recognized it. You felt the pull. Thoth said that when a soul begins awakening, reality bends around them to accelerate their path. People appear at the right time. Information arrives when you're ready. Doors open that were previously invisible. That's what's happening to you. You're not imagining the shift. You're not exaggerating your experiences. You're awakening. And the reason this message reached you is because your soul timed it perfectly. You're not early. You're not late. You're right on schedule. If this transmission resonates with what you've been experiencing, confirm it in the comments by writing, "I understood it." And if you want the next stage of this awakening decoded for you, make sure you follow and stay connected. Your path is activating now.